And welcome back. Let's head back to the Golan Heights, to a place known as the Valley of Tears. Now, it was the scene of a major tank battle between Israel and Syria during the 1973 Yom Kippur War. And as our good friend Elliot Chodoff tells us, it's still a buffer today as Iran tries to expand to Israel's doorstep, a goal that just became much more difficult, thankfully, following the death of arch-terrorist Qassem Soleimani. Take a look. Qassem Soleimani is dead and gone, the architect of Iran's terror strategy across the region.
Yes.
Where are we at now?
I would expand on that. Soleimani was the architect of Iran's reach into the region. Terror for sure, militias, Hezbollah. Terror isn't big enough for what Soleimani was. He was an active operator, leading, as I said, the militias and everything that was going on. But I think part of what made him really important that's missed in America is the fact that he was in that position for over 20 years. And it's something that we don't relate to in Western democracies, because every 4 years or so, 5 years, and I'm talking about officials, not elected officials, move on, they retire, they move on to another position, and that's in part to make sure that those individuals don't gather that much power around themselves as individuals.
Yet he became, over those 20 years, Elliot, the second most powerful man in Iran.
Exactly, the man. And who answered directly to the supreme leader. In other words, he was out of the regular line of command and answered directly to the top. So a very, very important person, not just an important position.
And he projected that power, as you said, across the region.
He did. He had the personality.
Yeah.
You know, part of what made him what he was his personal charisma. Hassan Nasrallah said that he was a close personal friend. Others, close personal friends. And you know what? You do things for your friends sometimes more than just taking orders from them. And that was also part of his power. Very, very difficult for them to replace. I would say impossible to replace in the short term. Over the long term, we'll see. Maybe somebody else will lead up to that, but that's 20 years down the road.
Yeah. In charge of Iran's external terror operations, the blood, from an American perspective, we knew he had plots, obviously, to destroy the state of Israel. That was his endgame. He was working towards it actively.
For sure.
From an American perspective, the blood of hundreds, at least, of American soldiers on his hands.
General Petraeus said over 1,000, and I'll go with that number.
Yeah.
In terms of directly supporting the enemies that America has fighting American troops in Iraq and Afghanistan and in other places.
Yeah.
So yes, he was an active participant. Generals don't do the shooting, but an active participant in attacks on Americans.
But many in the West seem to be kind of gnashing their teeth and wringing their hands about Soleimani's death. Can you explain that? Because to me, it's maddening. The world's #1 terrorist is dead and gone. I think that's a good thing.
I know it's a good thing. Look, I think part of the explanation is domestic politics, and I don't think we have to go into that in any depth, but it's there. And that brings us to the second point. I think that Westerners in general, and in this case, Americans in particular, don't really appreciate how dangerous he was. Yeah. It's a distant kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I'll add on to that, and this had to do also, I think, with some media hype, the belief that by taking him out, it actually made the situation more dangerous than it was.
Yeah.
And I understand that logic, even though it's incorrect. The danger has always been here. Iran created that danger all the way back to the hostages in the embassy.
That's right.
And the attack on the Marines in Beirut, it's a very long list.
Sure. That
danger existed and continues to exist. The Soleimani takeout maybe brought it more imminent. Yeah. But anytime you change a policy of appeasement, it brings the danger up in terms of time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't elevate the intensity of the danger. The immediate response to taking out Soleimani was that missile attack on the American base. Now, no Americans were killed, and there were mixed reports on why and what, but there were no real injuries.
Yeah.
They launched one strike. It really had no effect.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, we're good on this. And to me, that teaches me two things. One is that the Iranians are trying to get back into the situation of America tolerating their attacks.
Yeah.
And just recently there were the attacks on the American embassy.
Rocket attacks in Baghdad. Yeah.
And same thing, no response. Now, maybe there will be one, but no immediate response.
Yes.
And responses have to be immediate to have deterrent effect.
Yeah.
So there's a slow return that the Iranians are manipulating to the situation of they can get away with it if they use proxies.
They're testing the waters, they're probing and trying to get back
It's actually pushing the envelope a little bit more each time. It's not a massive response, because that would bring a massive counter response.
Sure.
But all right, let's push it a little further. Let's push it a little beyond that, and let's see how far we can go with it. Yeah. I'm also not convinced that we have seen the final response by Iran to the Soleimani attack. And I think this might be setting it up. I think we're going to be looking at something indirect, in other words, not directly Iranian. Hezbollah somewhere, Europe, United States, one of the other militias somewhere. I don't want to give them any ideas. We don't have to speak in terms of specifics.
God forbid, Jewish targets, American targets abroad.
There's no shortage, no shortage. But I think before they do that, first of all, an operation like that takes time to set up. Before they do that, they are already operating to reestablish that status quo of if somebody else does it, we don't get hit back for it.
Coming up, we head to Jerusalem to get the inside story of how the Iranian regime is increasingly on the ropes. The death of Qassem Soleimani may only be the beginning. Don't move.